morning, everyone. Happy Veterans Day to all you veterans out there. Thank you to Eric for those kind words. It's very special to have one of my soldiers here with me on this amazing day where I've been invited to come speak to this great group of young people here at the Citadel. I invited Eric, Specialist Leafblad, as I once called him, to speak today because he sets an incredible example for all of us. He shows us that in our time in uniform, there is more value than even that moment. And you all sit here in uniform today. You'll know what I mean. It prepares us all for a lifetime of giving back to this amazing country. It helps us reach our potential as individuals and as citizens of the United States of America. And of course, what better day to be reminded of that than today? It's an honor to spend Veterans Day at one of America's great military colleges, a campus that believes deeply in fighting for American ideals, not protesting them. Imagine that. By the way, I hear your football team is still in the hunt for the conference title. Is that right? I wish you unmitigated good luck because you don't play Army this year. I want to thank the many future veterans that are here today, too. All of you who plan to pursue military service after graduating, I salute you. I understand branches will come out on Wednesday of this week. Good luck. I met some of you who chose Armor Branch. Hope you get it. I remember my time as a young West Point cadet a long time ago. Now, I can still recall, like you all today, the carefully pressed uniforms, the early morning drills, and just how eager I was at this time to get on the field for my country. I got my chance patrolling the Iron Curtain during the Cold War. Last week, I got back early on Saturday morning from Germany. I had the privilege of returning to where I once stood to mark the 30th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. Standing there on a chilly November day in Berlin, I felt proud to have played just a tiny part in that victory. I was humbled by the privilege of returning to this ground that I'd walked, that I'd patrolled when I was with Specialist Leafblad, returning as Secretary of State, and grateful to have chosen to get back into service in the United States of America. You should feel that too. You should feel proud, humbled, grateful to be a student at this distinguished institution. And just like Eric, all of you who serve will gain knowledge and skills that equip you for that lifetime of service. And that's what I want to spend today's time sharing with you. I want to tell you a few things I learned in the military that I still put into use every day as Secretary of State. So as you move through your time here at the Citadel, hopefully you will think about these things as well. First, for me, military service turned into the relentless pursuit of excellence. Excellence as a habit. It's what Specialist Leafblad referred to. You know by now that your success as a cadet isn't just about good grades. It's about maintaining discipline in everything that you do. It's about shining your shoes until you can see your reflection. You should check mine out this morning. It's about showing up on time, ready to go, even if after 3 hours you felt like you didn't get enough sleep. To an outsider, to someone who's not familiar with this place, you may seem out of step. But once you step in the field with your chin strap buckled, with your weapon in hand, the reason that you did that, the reason you dedicated yourself to this purpose will become very clear. The mission will hinge, whether that's in uniform or in civilian service, your mission will hinge on your capacity to focus and your capacity for personal self-discipline. And for many of you, this will be a matter of life and death for those around you. That's why there's no safe spaces here at your military school. Trust me, it may not seem that way now, but you will thank your drill sergeant later. I'm still thanking mine. My job every day requires me to maintain the habit of excellence. By the time I sit across, as I travel the world, by the time I sit across from a foreign leader, I've poured hours into parsing through the latest intelligence, preparing myself, preparing my team, I've learned everything I can from my State Department teammates. I want to know the leader's personality quirks, and I want to know the country's internal politics. I want nothing left to chance for that important meeting. And just like in military service, diplomacy requires a pursuit of excellence down to that last detail. I expect it of myself, and I expect it of every member of my team. That leads me to my second lesson. Military service taught me that you can only be as good as that team that's around you. A meeting with a foreign leader doesn't just happen. You don't just show up. It doesn't involve just a handful of people who are sitting in that room on that particular moment. It requires hundreds of people, from the embassy staff to policy experts to the security team and much, much more. And the Army taught me, the military taught me, that effective leadership means setting a clear mission and a good example while empowering every individual on the team to follow suit and have their own level of excellence. For those of you who go on to lead men and women in the armed forces, I want you to know that there is no greater responsibility and no greater honor. After I graduated, I was put in charge of a platoon of 30 soldiers, a cavalry regiment. You just heard from one of them, Specialist Leafblad. He told you his side of this story, and now I want to tell you mine. Specialist Leafblad had entered the Army out of high school, as he described. He confessed to me he hadn't tried too hard in school, and he was working to figure out what would come next in his life. But I could see very clearly he was talented, he was bright, there was something really special, and I wanted to make sure and inspire him to the extent I could and motivate him. I came to trust him. The vehicle was always ready. I came to trust him with more and more responsibility. The more I gave him, the more he took on, and the more he proved he could handle. And when he came to me one day, as he described, he said he wanted to return home and give college a try. I encouraged him to do that. I knew it would blow an enormous hole in my unit, in my platoon, and that I'd have to figure my way forward. But I wanted him to do that. I wanted him to do it for a reason. I knew that his service to America wouldn't be over. Just as when you leave here, whether you join the military or you go into civilian service, your time of service won't be over either. Eric described the letter that I received a couple years ago recounting his many successes. It filled me with great joy. You know, he went to law school. He served for 11 years in the state's attorney's office. I must say, it brought me with great joy to hear of his accomplishments, but I must tell you, I wasn't surprised. Here's what he wrote. He wrote, quote, "Not a day goes by that I don't use a skill or an idea that I learned from one of my mentors in the Army." You know, that fills me with great pride. I'm sure he was talking about people other than me when he talks about his mentors. Who knows how many lives Eric has gone on to save over the years through his remarkable work following his time in service in uniform. Best of all, he's become the director of training, now leading and training others, a mentor to generations of public servants. It's a powerful reminder to each and every one of you in this room that service and leadership can change a person's life and the lives of those around and cause a ripple effect with positive impacts all around the United States of America. It's why when I was the CIA director and now as Secretary of State, I've continued to try and identify talent, reward hard work, and encourage each person to be the best they can, to build out teams, because I know that it will pay dividends for our nation. Last lesson that I learned from my time in the military, and it's probably the most important of all. I learned that America is a truly exceptional nation with exceptional values, and it must be defended with exceptional courage. I was reminded of this on the trip I referred to when I was traveling in Berlin. I remember being a young soldier while that wall stood. I remember seeing the despair that had taken root on the other side of the Iron Curtain. I could see it in the faces of the guards that patrolled the eastern side. I witnessed the thin barrier between freedom and tyranny and America's role in ensuring that freedom always prevails. I carry that lesson with me today as our administration works to defend freedom in a post-Cold War era. We are in a competition of ideas all around the world. Our other great powers actively work alongside of us. but many promote their authoritarian models worldwide as alternatives to the fundamental way we live our lives here in America. But we're pushing back on that. When President Trump talks about the world, he talks about Americanism and the pride that we should have. We should not apologize for the United States of America, not now and not ever. From Europe to Latin America to the Indo-Pacific, we've mobilized our democratic partners to stand with us on the side of freedom. Many of your senior leaders here, including your general, served under uniform for exactly that ideal. From NATO to the United Nations, we've worked to refocus international institutions on their original purposes, promoting these central ideas of democracy and human rights, the very things you learn about in your classes today. Look, we see challenges all across the world, from persecuted Christians in the Middle East to Uyghur Muslims in China. We've demanded that this not take place, that religious liberty and unalienable rights for the oppressed be put at the forefront of the world's agenda. I've been the Secretary of State now for some 19 months, traveled to 55 or so countries, some of which haven't been visited by the Secretary of State in decades. I wanted to deliver that message, the message about who you are, who we are, to deliver the message that American leadership is back, and that it is never easy to fight for freedom. I chose public service one more time out of a responsibility that I feel to the generations that came before me, that gave me this incredible privilege to be an American and live in freedom, and the responsibility each of us has to the generations which will follow us. And as we sit here today on November 11th, on Veterans Day, it's a reminder of the sacrifices made down through the years, from the Civil War to the Cold War, from multiple world wars, to defend the American ideal. I must say, too, I look at you and I can see your generation has stepped up already to defend. Many who fight today in the Middle East are too young even to remember 9/11 as a first-hand experience, yet they bravely answer the call each and every day to combat terrorism. Should you have the honor of serving, I pray that you learn the lessons that I learned and allow them to inform you in your lifetime of giving to America. Because the country will need you. Your generation will need you. The generation that comes after you will need you too. From what Lincoln called the silent artillery of time. That's because it's human nature. It's human nature to forget the precious value of what previous generations fought for and died. It is common sense to be focused on the day. There's a natural gravity pulling us away from our founding towards false promises of progress. But you can't resist this by simply flying straight. You have to actively steer towards the founding, toward our original ideas of limited government, individual liberty, and of unalienable rights, the founding documents you all read about in your classwork. That requires courage and discipline, what you're learning here at this amazing institution. And it's what you have come to know about paying a price for freedom. I know you will all do this. I know you will all deliver. I look forward to taking some questions today. I want to wish everyone out there a happy Veterans Day. God bless you. God bless this amazing institution at the Citadel. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you all so much.